coming at you live. It's Sunday Stories.
Good evening, everyone. There is a lot to get to tonight.
Well, let's say you have 100 cases, and let's say you don't do a shutdown, then it grows 33% per day.
Figures appear to show the coronavirus restrictions are working. Australia has recorded its lowest daily rise in infections in almost a month.
Hello friends, and welcome back to another episode of Sunday Stories with me, your host, Fahrim Shirinzade. We'll cover ongoing headlines and meet interesting fucking guests. 2020 has been a very special year for all of us. Unfortunately, not in a good way. I'm talking about the corona crisis. To help me with the topic, I have invited a very special co-host. She is a specialist in crisis management. She creates order and clarity in the mess that crisis management often entails. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Elin Richards. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Well, yes, I'm used to all kind of pronunciations, but it's a German name and Richards is the correct pronunciation.
Perfect. Okay. In this podcast, like I told you, we have a segment to make you a little bit more nervous. And the segment is true or false. So you will get a statement, and then you will say, is this true or is this false? Okay?
Okay.
Awesome. Let's just dig in. The capital of North Carolina is Winston-Salem. True or false?
Well, when it comes to US, I'm not very sure, so I'll say true.
That is false. But you have more questions, you can pick it up. Okay, this one maybe. The boiling point of water is 221 degrees Fahrenheit.
And again, we are in the US.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I have to dig out all my old physics knowledge from school. Well, you know, I'm an expert in crisis management,
right.
Risk analysis, continuity management.
Yeah.
Well, let's go with true.
With true. That is false, but it's very close. It was 212 Fahrenheit. But again, in Sweden, we don't use Fahrenheit. The largest planet in our solar system is Neptune.
No.
No, false. That's correct. It is Jupiter, which is 11 times bigger than Earth. That's crazy. And I thought Earth is big. Nike is the Greek goddess of victory.
And again, you have to go back to school.
Yeah.
But yes, okay, true.
Yeah, that is correct. Wow. See, you're picking up some points here. There is 88 keys in a piano.
Again, crisis management.
Yeah, it's very far away. That's why I chose these questions. It's like you have to count all the keys now.
Exactly.
Could it be 88?
Picking up a picture in my mind. Well, a quick answer, it's false.
Well, that was true, actually. That was true. But we go on to the next one, which is about Germany. Adolf Hitler was born in Germany.
No, it's false.
Correct. And you made it. Are you more sweaty now than you were before?
Well, now I feel a bit out of balance.
Right.
So.
But you did good. You did very good, actually. And we are going to dig into this crisis talk, which is more your cup of tea. Let's start with what you work with. If we start from there, what do you work with day to day?
For me, crisis management is trying to build a coping capacity and ability within organizations and individuals to actually meet different kinds of strain in the organization, right. Events. And if you want to call it a crisis, yeah, for sure we can, but then you need to define that word. And itself, it has no clear definition, which is international and known by everyone, which is one of the reasons why I find it so very, very interesting to work with this. I like most to build a capacity before something happens, to work with the structures and the organization, to see the dependencies and the reporting structures within an organization and to different other organizations around.
Right.
To find a structure and a methodology which will work and support, and also to work with individuals in trainings and exercise to build a confidence to actually lead.
You have witnessed quite a lot before the crisis, and Could you say that Sweden as a country were prepared for this kind of situation?
But I think that one needs to go back to actually the definition of a crisis situation and what makes the corona crisis so extremely, in my perspective, interesting and for others extremely difficult to handle.
Right.
In the background, I'm a medical geographer, and for me that means that epidemic and pandemic situations is what I'm actually educated for, meaning that I look on this situation with certain interest, for sure. And in a normal crisis, let me say like that, if there is a fire or there is an IT crash or something more local that puts strain on one or maybe a limited number of organization or part of the society.
Right.
And that means that there is a stability around the people and the businesses which are actually crashing.
Yeah.
Right now, everything is moving and everyone is under strain. And that means that the resources which is there needs to be coordinated between everyone. And this is something completely new, not only for Sweden, but for many different countries. And what have happened during the last years, that you have gone more into an individual thinking, not only in Sweden, but in many different countries, creating a public official sector division, which is problematic in itself. And in Sweden, we have been a very safe country. We are still a very safe country compared to others, meaning that when we look at a crisis, we don't see this kind of total collapse, which is, I shouldn't say happening right now, but on certain issues, it's free falling. We see fire, we see IT crash, we see temporary loss of staff in a small segment, like a strike or something. Meaning that now when everything is demanding an interaction and cooperation between all systems in the society, this is something new and extremely challenging, and something which on one side I think is very good, not only for the Swedish society but for the globe as a whole, to actually realize what is important, which dependencies are certainly strong and needs to be valued.
True.
And which are more of a nice to have solution.
Right.
So if Sweden is or was prepared, partly yes, partly no, but I don't think that is unique for Sweden. Right.
Yeah, we were also speaking before we started recording that I had a suggestion that you guys could be the middleman between the private companies and the government, and you said that that's the gap need to be filled, right? The government has a lot of crisis packages that just goes out to smaller companies, bigger companies, but there is still a lot of people losing jobs and the economy is taking big hits. Do you think that we're going to be able to recover from this in 1 year or so?
I think that there will be a time before and a time after Corona.
Right.
Meaning that all businesses and all authorities will need to revalue actually how you do business and what is the trigger factors, the motivation points you use as a sales organization and as a receiving organization. You need to be better to actually define your needs, and the business need to be able to redefine their services to meet the needs.
Right.
And if we are able to do that, I think that there is a very good way to recover faster than many people think we will.
Okay.
But it takes a lot of effort from us. And as a leader, the most important thing is to keep actually the hope for the future going.
Of course.
Because if you don't hope yourself as a leader, no matter if it's on national level or a company level, how are your employees and citizens going to keep the hope up?
That is true. Have we had any similar situation in the world that you can compare it to? I mean, the financial crisis or the Great Depression, or is there any other environment or situation that we can compare this to?
I think it's always dangerous to compare situations because they're always unique.
Right.
I think that you can find patterns which is repeating itself, which I always find sad because you should learn.
Yeah. But we're humans.
Yeah, we are human, and the learning curve is not always very straight.
Yeah.
We have had a lot of epidemics and pandemics in the world, but we are very good in forgetting. And what also needs to be understood, in my perspective, is that the world is constantly changing and developing. So, meaning that what happened in the early 90s with the Spanish flu and how the coronavirus is spreading now, there are for sure things to look at which has similar effects, but you cannot compare the society then and now.
Right.
And the ability and the barriers which are put in place is also different.
Yeah.
As well as they are between different countries. They need to be different because the spreading pattern is different.
True. For a long time, a lot of people have been pro-globalization, and a lot of people also say that that is also the big factor why this is spreading so fast, because we're not sitting at home, we're traveling and so on. Do you see the world changing in a different manner after this crisis? And are we, for example, going to do like Trump does, bring jobs back to secure the delivery of products or the supply or so on?
I think that this question is very parted in different aspects and perspectives. The globalization is important. It's important for very many different reasons, and to have exchange of knowledge, of culture, and of understanding is one of the key factors why the society is developing as a whole on a global level. But when the globalization structure, like during the corona crisis, suddenly doesn't work anymore, you cannot travel, you cannot exchange goods in the same way as before. Yeah. We need to have an ability to actually cope ourselves. And this one thing does not foretake the other. And that is one of the most important things to realize, that you cannot say that, from tomorrow on we will stop traveling and think that the world will stay as it is.
Right.
It's not.
No.
Everything we do has consequences, both
Definitely.
on good and bad sides.
Definitely.
And when you say, no, I'm going to stop flying or I'm going to stop eating meat, there is always a consequence of that which you maybe not foresee.
Right. That is true.
So even so-called good decisions, which you do with an ethical or social perspective, can be have negative consequences in other areas and perspectives or regions.
And another side of this crisis is also, did you want to call this crisis, by the way? I keep saying crisis. Did you want to call it something else?
Well, this is, for me, crisis very often is met with a negative
it does, right?
point, and it scares. The word itself is one of the biggest problems within crisis management, because we don't want to call the situation a crisis.
Right. So what would you call this situation?
We call it that an organization is under severe stress or strain, meeting extreme challenges. And if you put it like that, many leaders and management teams are more like, okay, let's overcome the challenge, let's solve the problem.
It's motivating.
Yeah, instead of you are in a crisis now, and that there's always a risk of passivity by using the word itself. On the other hand, the laws and regulations we have are talking about crisis management and continuity planning, and if we then call it something else, we don't fulfill the laws. So
true. Okay, so now I get it. Right. So this stressful situation that we have right now is also causing a lot of misinformation in media. And to take an example, a couple of weeks ago, I started to look into Russia. And I wondered why they're so quiet about it, because Putin had its own agenda and there was no talk about Corona. And a couple of weeks ago, I just turned on the TV, and they were talking about Sweden as a bad example of dealing with this problem. And I've also heard from other channels that a lot of countries are blaming Sweden for being too open, too non-strict, or taking it mañana. We're taking it as it comes. Do you think the government should act stronger, like France, for example, Italy, Spain, or?
First of all, I just need to reaching out to your listeners. Life is not mañana and normal in Sweden.
Right.
What has been very different is the management style between Sweden and other countries. Instead of forbidding, you advise, and you expect that people actually follow advice.
Right.
And that is to a very high level done, without forbidding and locking people in and having police follow up that you actually do what you are told to do. So this is mainly different in management style and not in the limitations and decisions which have been taken. They are very much the same.
Yeah.
So first, with that only stated, I truly hope that every government on a high level have the best understanding for their own society and citizens and the barriers which are needed to be put in place.
Yeah.
But to understand the spread of a virus, you need to understand the social structures which is existing within the local culture. And that's not only different in countries, that's also different within regions in the same countries. And to be good in crisis management, one of the biggest abilities in this is to actually understand and to interpret the information you get, and from that be able to evaluate your organization and make decisions.
Right.
And to say if the Swedish decisions or the German decisions, the Russian decisions were good or bad, that will take months, years to see if it was good or bad, effective or not. I'm not in a way entitled to comment about that, but I think that we need to raise the time perspective quite a lot when we look upon this crisis and stop counting day-to-day development, but more maybe week-to-week development, and hopefully soon we can start to count month-to-month development.
That is smart. Very smart, actually.
But I think that we also need to turn the whole thing around and saying who is blaming who.
Right.
Because the countries are not blaming other countries. It's media and so-called experts making statements about other countries, which is very negative or positive.
Yeah.
And again, then we are back in understanding the situation and misinterpretation of information during such a situation. You don't need to go back in time a lot, but say 10, 20 years, the information load which we got as individuals, as companies, were a lot smaller. And the ability to actually sort and interpret it within the information was a lot higher.
Right.
More than being fed with information, you needed to search for information.
True.
And now every one of us on every part of the globe is constantly fed with information which in very many cases is somebody's very, very far contact maybe thought or did, and I don't know, but this is how it is. Then the human mind, the brain functions in believing in information which actually confirms our own suspicions.
Right, yeah.
And this is, for me, actually a bigger crisis than the spread of the virus.
Right.
Because what that causes is polarization, it causes nationalism, it causes fright from individuals to actually spend their money. So a lot of decisions made globally and on local level, privately and in governmental institutions are done on, I shouldn't say false information, but an information bulk which is impossible to interpret it and actually say that, okay, here's one saying A and here's the other one saying B, and they are completely contradictory. What should I believe on? And then you take the one which fits your own fear and perception best. But that's not true. And every crisis is bringing with it a lot of uncertainties. This is why it is a crisis. And this situation, which we are in the moment, is uncertain in very, very many ways. But the system approach to the whole thing, to understand that one thing is to actually handle the consequences of the virus, and the other thing is to handle people's fear and capacity to actually interpret and take in information. And then we have the reactions from companies and from individuals to this fear. And then we have the decisions and the restraints on the society also causing consequences. And I don't think that many of the world leaders understood in the beginning of the crisis, when you took very hard measures to stop the spread, to actually understand what the consequences in other perspectives would be.
True.
And if you have made a decision, you need to stick to it, but only as long as it's valid. So you need to be constantly adapting to the situation and reevaluate the decisions you have made. And please, everyone, let's look into confirmed sources of information. And very much think about the communicative objective from the person or the organization giving you an information. What do they actually want?
What is their agenda, right?
What is their agenda? Do they want you to buy something? Or do they want you to change a behavior? And that is proven in many different countries, that the corona crisis have brought in a very high wave of information, but also a wave of disinformation, which is targeting fear within the population to actually make people go against their governments in different ways, to destabilize a country. So this is done from foreign actors in different perspectives and for different reasons why this should be done. And this is something which I think that we all as individuals need to take our own responsibility for.
That's true.
We cannot affect how companies or governments make decisions, but we can affect how we react and interpret that information.
And don't you think that the government then should punish them, or we should have some kind of laws that make it harder? Because this is a upcoming problem that we have. I mean, we had the U.S. election when Trump was elected, and then there was some conspiracy theories that the Russians had something to do with that. And now we're coming back to misinformation again. So it feels like it's going to be a problem that's just coming back all the time. How can we as a country deal with that?
How disinformation works is that somebody gives you a message which is half true and half false and make you believe in it. And as long as we as individuals more likely believe on an exceptional news, which is nowhere else, but, I will be the first to know this and this is terrible. There's no way to stopping this. And it has always been like this. It's only that the new media communication systems makes this more accessible and possible. But as a country to forbid it, I mean, there's a freedom of speech, which is a very, very important part in democracy. And if we take this away and start to punish people...
That's true.
And I think that everybody is entitled to their feelings and to their fears. But there needs to be...
some kind of order, right?
Some kind of order, and especially... I think that fear most often comes from a lack of knowledge, and that you maybe don't know where to get a confirmed information. And if the governments fail to actually support with correct and verified information, well, then you search it somewhere else. And
that is true. I didn't think this way that you mentioned, that it's not the countries, it's actually the people. When you open your Instagram, there's always a specialist or a scientist, like a hobby scientist, that would just spit on some information to you, which they take from Facebook, which is then took from BuzzFeed, which is, so it's a very complicated problem. It's a very hard job you have, huh? I'm not even jealous. I mean, it feels like it's a burning house, and you guys are the firefighters. And there's like, here's a bunch of money, and just put the fire out.
on one side, I see the example you make, but on the other side, I would like to say, no, I'm the one steering the firefighters. Because to turn out the fire is only a part of it. That's like stopping the virus spreading.
Right.
But you need to have somebody standing outside talking to insurance companies.
Sure.
And you need to have somebody standing outside taking care of the people who actually lived in the house.
Right.
And you need to have somebody calling a construction company to build it up again.
True.
So it's so many perspectives which needs to be taken into account. And the job which I seriously would not like to have right now is to be prime minister or the statsepidemiolog, as we say here, the ones responsible for actually making the overall decisions, limiting all the movement and the companies.
That's a hard job.
Would be terrible. And then we as a population, and certainly as a media, we need to understand under what kind of situation these decisions are made, and understand that sometimes it becomes wrong.
Yeah.
And then we need to have an acceptance that the decision is changed.
True.
Yesterday this was okay, today it's not.
Yeah.
And
it is.
That is fully normal and must be like that. Imagine a government which would not be able to change a decision which were wrong.
Yeah, that
would be terrible.
Wow.
With the fear of entering really deep water. I think that you need to look upon this as a completely different way of understanding how social structures and politics works in different countries, in different regions.
Yeah.
Because if you have a very strict government and very high law enforcement and punishment within the society, to have creativity among the people is then killed.
That's true.
You don't take any own initiative because then you're punished for it. And in an environment where you actually are advised and not punished, it's fully acceptable to say, well, I have an idea.
Yeah.
And then sometimes the idea is good and sometimes the idea is not good.
True.
But you feed the creativity and solution thinking instead of everything should be in a very certain way.
Yeah.
Because again, then it's only the way and the perspective of the decision maker and not of the society as a whole.
That's true. And I want to believe that the countries that are this strict that you're talking about will change. But I also want to think that, like you said in the beginning, we have a tendency of forgetting stuff very, very fast. So maybe a couple of years, the country is going to be, we accept everybody's minds and opinions. But everybody's going to go back, like in 5 years. I mean, some also say that in 5 years or something, this all will repeat itself with something else, right? Why are we this bad at actually learning how to deal with it and preparing ourselves for this mess, you know? I mean, this keep happening. Why are we so stupid? That's what I want to...
Well, humankind is stupid.
Yeah, we are. We are.
And that also goes back into a lot of psychology research saying that, well, our brains are lazy. They want to have quick decisions and they want to have easy decisions. We don't want to analyze. We don't want to read all the research ourselves and make our own interpretation of it. Can somebody just shorten it down and say it to me? And then, well, absolutely, that is possible, but whose opinion and whose citing is it then?
True.
It's not your own. It's somebody who has compromised it for you, told it to you, and then you make your own interpretation of that summarize,
exactly,
and then you bring it to somebody else.
Exactly, it gets shorter and shorter.
Shorter and shorter and shorter. And what I'm most afraid of concerning the corona crisis is actually not the virus itself and even the financial instability which we are experiencing now. There will be measures taken, and I think that a lot of responsibility also lies on us as individuals to spend our money, to the companies to actually don't see everything in black and shut down, but try to find a way forward, and to for sure on the authorities to very closely think about the decisions they're making. But what scares me the most is all the decisions and limitations which have been put in place by several governments or worldwide, I would say. And I don't think that everybody understands what these decisions and these limitations actually means, and to make sure that they are all withdrawn afterwards, to make sure that the crisis law forbidding people or making the government exclusive rights to forbid people, that it actually goes away afterwards.
Right.
I think that we have already seen some countries going very close to not becoming, not being a democracy anymore.
Yeah.
And
Indonesia is one of them. They're
Hungary is another. So that scares me a lot. How will all the decisions be withdrawn? How do we go back to the political and governmental way of actually steering the countries and the globe as a whole in a positive democracy development, and not taking many steps back into limitations in society?
Yeah, that's a new opinion, a new way of seeing it. Well, that's what you hear. That's what I'm here. All right. This has been amazing. And before I got here, I had my opinions of stuff work, mostly of people telling me, and now I have confirmed information. And thank you very much that you've been part of Sunday Stories. As a summary for people, as individuals, what would you give them for tips for the upcoming 1 year?
The first one is to make sure that the information you build your decisions on are confirmed information, and not, I don't know how many third or fourth or fifth hand information people are. So go on the official governmental sites, on the international WHO, ECDC, CDC, or your local government, who actually has official information and official advice and decisions what is to be done to stop the spread. This is my first and foremost recommendations to everyone, to think about any information you receive. What is the goal and objective with that information? What does it actually want you to do? And is it confirmed or not? The second of all is to not lose hope, to see that there is a life after this too, and how do you want it yourself to be? To not only as a company, but also as an individual, formulate a goal for where you want to go and how your life should be afterwards, so that you're able to actually take the right measures to create that life for yourself and your family when the situation changes.
True.
And don't lose hope, and make sure to do whatever you can to support the system which is put in place, because we all have a responsibility in sorting the situation out and finding a way forward. And if you don't follow the rules and recommendations which there is, you have never any right to criticize them, because you are part of making them not work.
Like it,
So follow the rules and advice which is put in place. That makes the whole thing go a lot faster.
Right. Wow. Good tips. And I really hope that people are going to get smarter, even though I have some doubts. But thank you again, Elin, for being a part of it. And good fucking luck. You have a lot of work to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.